Hello and welcome back to Aetheral Space. It's your Aetheral Space. Just kidding, it's
We
mine.
gotta have a we need to have a different opener. It's bad now. It's in every fucking series. Mimetic influence. Yeah, I don't remember what happened last time. I kind of do. Old Owl said some shit about the beginning of the world, and Dragon was like, "I'll teach you Aether, Lily, haha," and that's all I remember.
That's probably what happened.
I was
Quite
crying because I was all alone by myself.
quite a few less words, but
Yeah. But now Tanhony's back, and I'm not lonely anymore. He's made me whole again.
that's right. It's like Kingdom Hearts. I came out of your heart.
I'll fill your dark soul with light.
He betrayed him. He didn't betray him.
He betrayed. Yeah, Tanhony when he doesn't show up to Aetheral Space.
I love how we're now just referencing memes that we only us have seen now. It's not even like Squid Game anymore. It just messages we pass to each other.
Yeah, we can't keep talking about Squid Game in every series this week. Our fans
You can sort of track the conversation through our different videos this week, probably.
Okay. Let's go. 3 years ago, it felt like a great weight was slowly being eased off of Ruth's shoulders. So is this before Robin died?
This was 3 years ago.
Right, I don't remember how long her Robin flashbacks were. Were those also 3 years?
It ended it 3 years ago.
Okay. It felt they'd done it. They'd almost done it. Optimism danced in Ruth's brain as she made her way through the thick jungle, skeletal claws slashing apart any vines that got in her way. Before the day was out, Zed Barrett would be dead, and the rebellion would be victorious. Everything would be over. Ruth hopped over a river, leaving a massive dent in the ground where she kicked off. What would she do when the war was over? It wasn't as if she'd never fantasized about it. Fighting was what she was best at, but that didn't mean there wasn't anything waiting for her when the fighting was over. She could do whatever she wanted. Any debt to Rupert Grave would be paid. Whatever she wanted. It was funny, but Ruth didn't actually know what she wanted. She was excited to find out, though. Robin was always talking about other planets, the places she'd seen, the farm world she'd grown up on with her mother. Maybe Ruth would check a couple of those out. Or maybe she wouldn't. The choice was entirely hers. A kitty giggle slipped out of her throat, swallowed by the wind. She couldn't get ahead of herself, though. One thing at a time. She couldn't celebrate the victory before it actually happened. She had to fulfill her part of the mission first, extracting Robin from the agreed-upon location. It wasn't exactly the most exciting role in the final battle, but truth be told, she didn't feel any need to personally plunge her claws into Zed Barrett's throat. To her, he was a nebulous threat, any real enmity born only of second-hand accounts. Grave was the one with the real grudge against him. She was sure he wouldn't miss the chance to finish off his hated foe. Well, he was welcome to it. Grave could execute whatever revenge he felt entitled to while Ruth got Robin out of here, and then her life could really get started. This was the day. Robin burst through the clearing.
Oh, no, that's my mistake. That's Ruth.
Sorry. Ruth burst through the clearing and ground to a halt. There were men in the clearing, men in armor, men with guns pointed right at her. The Admiral's men. The armor was obvious, the guns smoking residue plasma. The Admiral himself stood nearly in the middle of the clearing, staring impassively at Ruth, dull eyes over that stupid little mustache. He wasn't in the middle of the clearing. There was something next to him. There was something next to him. There was a pole in the middle of the clearing. No, there was something strapped to that pole. No, there was a person strapped to that pole. No, there was a corpse strapped to that pole. No, there was... Robin was strapped to the pole. Her skin had already turned pale from blood loss, but it was obvious with a single look that she'd been dead for some time already. Flies crawled over her contorted face. Her eyes stared sightlessly, locked in a final expression of agony. The skin of her torso was missing, stripped away by repeated lashes. Blood still dripped from the whip in her father's hands. Half-formed thoughts oozed incoherent from Ruth's mouth. "Oh," she muttered. "You!" Is that supposed to be dropped or dripped from the whip?
That should be drips. You're absolutely right.
Zed Barrett spoke, ignoring her words. He gestured towards the corpse with his free hand. "What you see here," he said, calm as the night, "is the result of your decisions as human beings. You must come to expect natural consequences." He was utterly, completely detached, neither the inflection of his voice or the expression on his face betraying any emotion at what he'd done. He'd killed her. The buzzing thoughts in Ruth's head solidified into murder. I'll kill you! She snarled, leaping forward, claws held high. Even if the guards burned her to ashes, she could kill this man first. Rip him to pieces, kill him! Do that at least before she died. Barrett had stared at her as she rushed right to him, claws slashing down to peel away his face. There was a shout of alarm from the guards. They hadn't expected such speed. There wouldn't be time to react. She'd kill him! No, she heard Barrett say, as calmly as ever. You are insufficient. Emperor Set! When Ruth's claws came down, they struck solid steel instead of soft flesh, and in the next instant she found herself suspended in the air as a gauntleted hand grabbed her by the throat. Zed Barrett had been utterly transformed. His uniform had been replaced with a massive set of steel armor, composed of countless interlocking plates, like some sort of titanic knight. Curling golden horns protruded from the helmet, and a burning red cape fluttered in the wind behind him. Ruth's eyes widened as Barrett's grip tightened. It was the same kind of ability as her skeletal set. It's the same type of stand. Exactly. She could tell just from the grip. This was armor many times stronger than her own. Pitiful, Barrett had muttered. You attempted to create some kind of counterfeit grave? As an insult towards me? How cheeky of you. Oh, I didn't realize grave taught her the armor. It was just... oh, shit. Ruth's eyes flicked around. Grave? Was Grave here? But Barrett was speaking only to empty air. There was nobody here to help her. Helpless anger ran dry, replaced by the anguish that poured free from Ruth's eyes, warm as fire on her cheeks. You killed her! She sobbed, glaring forwards at the slits on Barrett's helmet. Your own daughter! You killed her! You're a fucking monster! No, Barrett had said patiently. I am simply true to myself. It is in my nature to execute traitors, you see. His grip tightened slightly, and Ruth choked as she heard her own neck creak. She'd die. She was sure of it. She'd die here just like Robin. Just like Robin that should be dying, not here. I'm trying not to lose the emotional momentum. There were tiny holes, pinpricks all over Barrett's armor, and as Ruth struggled, liquid metal poured freely from them, forming into solid tendrils that held her firmly still. Soon enough, it was impossible for Ruth to so much as gasp for breath. Barrett was still speaking, though, even as he squeezed. I see you are not a person who understands, so let me explain. The purpose of organisms like us is to act according to our nature. If our desire is to help others, then we must do that with everything we have. If our desire is to inflict pain, we must inflict pain. Pain more agonizing and more cruel with each iteration, such that it almost becomes an ideal. He waved a free hand towards the body on the post. This is what I have done in this instance. A human soul requires tempering in the same way as a blade, and with each act like this, I become more and more like myself. That's my duty as a living thing. Ruth felt her vision growing dim as her lungs screamed for oxygen, darkness like videograph static creeping in on the edges of her vision. Dimly she wondered what would happen first. Would she suffocate, or would Barrett snap her neck with just a tiny bit more pressure? That was it then. Her arms fell limp to her sides, her claws useless. Her vision became nothing but dark. And yet, she heard a grunt of disapproval from Barrett, followed by the unimpressed words. I see you don't understand at all. The last thing she felt before true unconsciousness subsumed her was the heavy thump of a gauntlet against her skull. Ruth blinked as her eyes came back to the present. These swamps looked like death. No matter how much aether she infused into her eyes, it was nearly impossible to see through the dark green fog that permeated this part of the planet, swirling around nauseatingly as it oozed into every nook and cranny. Every now and then she'd spot some barely visible silhouette through the sickly air, the faded ribs of some long-dead beast, or the lone sentinel of a dying tree. But for the most part their journey was nothing but fog and sludge. The crustacean horse beneath Ruth jostled slightly as it stepped through the swamp, and she found herself clinging more tightly to its spinal spurs. The two sharing the ride with her, however, Old Owl and Grena, didn't so much as twitch. Riding like this was second nature for them, obviously. Your armor thing, Old Owl croaked, staring straight ahead at the front of the beast. The claws, you will not use them. Understand? Ruth nodded, and then, realizing the old man wouldn't have seen, replied, Yeah. Understand why? Any sparks will cause an explosion. You told me a thing can be listened to, but not heard, Old Owl said, patting the horse beneath him. The only thing is I would swap those two. A thing can be heard but not listened to, because listening usually implies
Old Owl talks understanding.
What?
Old Owl talks funny, though.
Okay. If an explosion happens when it is not supposed to, many of us will die. It is important that the opposite of this happens. Yes? Many of them must die. Right, Ruth said. What's the plan, then? We will win. Ruth sighed. Was this how Dragon felt when Ruth acted without thinking? No wonder he rolled his eyes so much. Listen, I've let you drag me all the way out here. I've been pretty good about all this. I want to help, but you gotta tell me what we're doing here. There was a deep, croaky sigh from Old Owl up ahead. Arbrisher's rebels are coming out through the swamp. Goth's toy soldiers are waiting to ambush them. We will act. Ruth nodded. We'll ambush them before the attack then. Drive them back and get them while they're off guard. Old Owl did not reply. In the corner of her eye, Ruth caught Greena very intentionally looking away. Wait. Ruth leaned forward slightly. That is the plan, right? Old Owl's thin, wrinkled fingers drummed against the carapace. There is a different stratagem. And that is? Some sudden, inevitable anxiety was thundering through Ruth's body now, intensifying her heartbeat to a drum of war. Something was wrong here. Something was very wrong. The Greenest soldiers on the neighboring horses, all part of the same convoy, looked at her cautiously. Slowly. Old Owl turned in his seat to face her. His eye narrowed inscrutably. There is a hill ahead, he croaked. A hill that rises out of this place, safe from fire. We will wait for Goth's men to begin the ambush. We will wait for them to finish it. We will wait for them to move in to capture the survivors. Ruth's blood turned cold as she realized the implication, but she had to ask all the same. And then what? Her mouth was dry. Old Owl blinked. Then, he said, they burn. All of them. Dragon held his nose as they marched through the darkness of the swamp, doing his best to ignore the slimy plants that brushed against his legs. This whole endeavor was absolutely disgusting. At his insistence, they'd left everything metal behind. He trusted these people to be competent enough not to not intentionally start a fire, but doing it by accident was another story. He sure as hell wasn't getting blown up because someone in this merry band had butterfingers. Well, there was one exception to the metal rule. Dragon's eyes flicked over to Skipper's prosthetic arm, half submerged in the muck ahead of him. You try and snap your fingers with that? He said seriously. And I'll seriously kill you. Oh good, so many seriouslys. Skipper laughed, his voice infuriatingly loud. I'd like to see it try, Mr. Adrian. Nah, seriously. I mean it. You gotta have more confidence in yourself. Dragon ignored whatever that was supposed to be. Just be careful, okay? Never anything but pal. Serena sulked as she swam through the swamp water. Wading wasn't her style, it seemed. This place sucks, she pouted. It stinks. You're talking to yourself. You're talking to yourself? I assume you're talking to yourself?
You've skipped a line.
Oh, sorry. From ahead in the sad little crowd of marching rebels, Dragon heard Lily Arbrisher call out, Less talking, more marching! We've only got so much time to get out of this place. You're talking yourself, Dragon thought, perhaps a little immaturely. She was right, of course. They had to get out of here as fast as they could if they wanted to. Are you sure it's not you're talking to yourself?
You're talking yourself.
Or talking about yourself?
She says stop talking, you're talking yourself.
Oh, I see. Dragon narrowed his eyes as he glanced up at the sky. There was something up there, a tiny shape beyond the fog. He poured Aether into his eyes, staring as hard as he could. His heart skipped a beat. Floating far above, looking down on them, was a flying humanoid figure clad in a red and blue cloak, face hidden behind a bone-white mask. The guardian entity that had almost killed him and Ruth. She told him that it was called Acamanto. Clutched in its hand, delicately between two fingers, was a tiny strip of flaming cloth. Dragon's eyes widened, almost bulging out of their sockets. He took in a greedy gulp of breath, enough to fuel a truly tremendous scream. Acamanto let go of the cloth. Dragon opened his mouth. Scatter! Bum bum bum.
Wow, I hope Dragon doesn't die.
Yeah. It must have been really hard for you, with being sick, having to read all that.
It was, thank you for your notice.
Thanks for sticking around, though. Real trooper moment.
No problem.
Very interesting. This also throws off Old Owl's plan, because the fact that they're just dropping a flaming cloth to begin with means they're not going to move their soldiers in. So now it's just the rebels burning to death. So I wonder if Old Owl will be like, fine, we'll help the fuckalos, or not.
We'll have to see.
Very curious indeed. One other thing that I found curious was I thought in Ruth's memory she saw Robin burning. So the fact that in the flashback she didn't arrive till she was like already dead is very bizarre to me.
So yeah, that's not actually ever said. So what whenever she had one of those little flashbacks, she was remembering two separate things, which is North getting killed, quote unquote, and finding Robin's body.
Right, but I thought she mentioned the burning smell and stuff.
That was
Like
North got burnt.
Flames.
Like North, quote unquote, got burnt.
A lot of fire in Ruth's life. Alright, well, we'll leave it there, as is. Good chapter as always. There's another one coming through. Stay tuned. And as always, if you enjoy, go on Royal Road. Make sure to make an account and leave a review. It makes Tanhony happy. And he might spare you for forgetting the password last episode of DSCP.
Yeah. Well, it's too late now, but...
Bye!
Bye!